I'm going to be showing you how to make my granny's Appalachian deep dish apple pie. You want to see this one. So when I was a little girl, my grandparents had an apple orchard, and as a result, I got to do as many apple pies as I wanted. But I also got to learn how to make my grandmother's deep dish Appalachian pie from scratch. So that was pretty cool. And that's what we're doing here today. So I've got a big bunch, 8 cups. This was 4 big Granny Smith apples. And you can use tablespoon lemon juice. You can use Gold or Macintosh if you want to. I just happen to have Granny Smith apples, so that's what I'm using. And those are available just about everywhere. 3/4 of a cup of sugar. I made my first one when I was about 5 years old, and I was so determined I was going to make this pie. And Granny couldn't find her pie pans, which I'll show you in a minute what we figured out, which I've done the rest of my life. 3/4 cup of sugar, about 1/4 cup of flour. So I ended up making this pie in a loaf pan, which, it worked. It got the job done. I also remember it being a little bit gray, which was probably because I was 5, and that's what 5-year-olds do. All right, teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Got those, Bladen?
Mm-hmm.
Bladen's my cameraman today. He's new to shooting the videos, but he's doing pretty well, so I'm grateful. All right, so all of these come in here. We're just going to toss these together, and it takes moments. I'll tell you, the hardest part of doing this pie is cutting and trimming all your apples. Now, you could find apples that are tiny. You could find the giant ones like I've got. So when you read a recipe that says, 4 apples, 6 apples, whatever, you really need to know how many cups of sliced apples. In this case, these apples were so big that I ended up cutting them into 16 wedges. Often I'll do apples where you only cut them into 1/8. But that's some big old apples. All right, when you get them down into you notice I don't have a pie plate. I still don't use a pie plate for this pie. That's a family tradition going back a ways. What I use here is a 9-inch cake plate. And it's because that gives me enough room to get all that goodness down in there. Okay? So, all I'm going to do for a second is arrange my apples so that I get as much apple goodness down in there as possible. And wash my hands. I'll be back and show you what it looks like at the next step. So, I didn't get real fussy. This is not like a tarte tatin where you want to make sure that you've got perfect little concentric rings of apples. You just want to make sure that you've got them all wedged down in there just as tight as you can, because what's going to happen when they get in the oven is that crust is going to set, and you don't want to have a big spot, a cave where your apples have shrunk down and your crust set way too far ahead of them. So that's why you get them all down in there as much as you can. And I'd say all in all that's about 2 tablespoons of butter. Like I said, this is an Appalachian deep dish pie. We don't worry too much about exact measurements, but that's the way I've been cooking all my life. So we take our top crust. Oop, flop. You try to get it centered, but on occasion, there we go. And then we're just going to crimp it. Now, Bladen, come down here and let me show you, because a lot of people don't understand what I mean by crimping. Is the video clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tuck that under like that, and then press. Okay, did you see what that did? Under and press. So not only are you going to end up with a pretty, edge on your pie, it keeps your pie firm on the edge, around the edge of your pie plate. Okay, so y'all don't have to watch me do all of this. Give me a minute. Got a 425-degree oven. I'll be back to throw that puppy in there. Thumbs up. Is that where we're going?
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm doing now, got that pie crimped all the way around. And I tell you, there's a lot of apples in that pie. Apples are pretty prevalent in Appalachian Southern cooking because they were cheap, they were abundant, they were everywhere, and they taste fabulous. So I just gave it a brush on the crust with a little bit of cream. Oh, and this is sweet. Just a minute ago I said, Bladen, I need you to grab me some sugar. And he came over and kissed his mama. Now he's turning beet red because I told him about that. So we're just giving a little sprinkle over the top. Don't want to go too heavy because while your pie's baking, if you got too much sugar on here, it'll burn. So it doesn't do a daggone thing either except make it pretty, give a little bit of a sparkle. It makes a nice little crunch. And then we're giving it just a little bit of venting spot right there. It's actually the third time I've had to shoot this video because my kids got into each of the other 2 pies before I was able to get to it. All right, 45 minutes, 425 degrees. But at 30 minutes, we're going to check, make sure we don't have to cover that edge with foil, right? So give me 45 minutes. I actually managed to get a pie out of the oven without one of the kids coming in here and messing with it. So at about 30 minutes, I did see that the edges were getting too dark. So I made little foil strips. See, that's all you gotta do. Pop them on there and let it go. And while I was popping it on there, I broke a piece of my crust off. But that's all right. Nobody's gonna care. Now here's the thing about this pie. This is why I've shot this pie 3 times. It's still bubbling inside. Now the flour is going to mix with all the juices from the apples. It's almost going to make like a little apple pie gravy in there. It's going to hold it all together. But if you cut this pie too soon, it's all going to just all over the... Quit making faces at me, John Blade. Stop it. The juices are just going to go all over the place, and your pie is not going to hold its shape. So this is a hard part about apple pie. Walk away. Okay, we're not touching this pie until it's come all the way down to room temperature. So my child is going to go cry in the corner and suck his thumb while we wait for the pie to cool down. I have literally had to stand here over this pie all afternoon with my wooden spoon until I got cool enough for us to cut it and not have the insides go all over the place. So I'm going to try to cut y'all a piece. And the kid that is so pie crazy, I haven't even let him come back down the steps. I think he asked me 14 times, is the pie ready? Is the pie ready? Is the pie ready? No, darling, pie's not ready. Now, it's often very difficult to get the first piece of pie out, which is a good thing and it's a bad thing. You know, if you're trying to shoot and you're doing something for television and you want to try to get that first piece of pie out of there, it's not a good thing. However, if you're doing this for your family, it's a great thing, because when the first piece doesn't come out well, that's the cook's piece, right? I'll call that medium. How about a medium success on that one? All right. Now wait a minute, we're not done. Well, first of all, I left some apples right here. So we're going to tuck those back under and pretend they didn't stay up in the pan. All right. So before we're finished serving, though, I forgot a spoon. Hang on. Always, I forget the spoon. So this is the pie Granny used to work with me to make from the apples out of their apple orchard. And even the very first pie I made, Granddaddy ate it. Every single bite. So there you go. That's an Appalachian deep dish apple pie with homemade whipped cream, and it tastes like my childhood.